Humankind is produced in association with WGBH Boston and supported by the Humankind Program Fund and the Network Incorporated.
They do them on the streets, of course, where the gangs hang. They'll do them in courts by advocacy. They'll go into the jails. They'll mentor young people really where they are, middle schools, high schools, parties, rec centers, at home, on the phone.
An unusual crew of street workers, including ex-felons, intervened to reduce gang-related violence. You're listening to Humankind. I'm David Freudberg. It began in the year 2000 when 15-year-old Jennifer Rivera was fatally shot at point-blank range in Providence, Rhode Island. That was the day before she was scheduled to testify as a witness in a murder trial. The heartbreaking crime stunned the community and led to the establishment of the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence. Its mission is to prevent future tragedies by intervening with troubled youth. Alfred Amuri, an ex-inmate now seeking to give back to society, is a street worker at the Institute trying to reduce gang violence.
Entering a territory is the first step. Once you've entered a territory, making the right connections is the second step. Being accepted is another step. So there's a few things you have to do to gain their trust, people in the community, because the first thing they think is these street workers are cops. And we have to prove to them that we're not cops, We're ex-felons that at the same time we could be here with you and the cops might arrest us because we're ex-felons. So we're taking a risk coming out here, talking to you, trying to see, listen, there's other things you can do besides this.
The Institute takes a gamble by employing people who've committed serious crimes to become peacemakers in gang territory. But like alcoholics who get sober and are well-positioned to understand others trapped in addiction, ex-felons bring a certain street cred when interacting with kids who are at risk.
So I want you to call me, and I'll give your mom and my sister the card. Call me, and she's going to start doing, she's going to be doing community service at...
Alfred Amuri served 14 years for a second-degree murder he committed in 1995.
So I couldn't even understand it myself. I can't even give you the understanding for it today, except for I was extremely angry and not trying to make excuse for my behavior. But I ended up, getting locked up and getting sentenced to 40 years with 25 to serve. And basically, I grew up in the penal system, but I tried to, better myself. As the years went on, I got into a program in a prison called SCORE.
It stands for Special Community Outreach Education, which organizes visits to prisons by junior and senior high school students. In a carefully controlled setting, the kids, some of them already troubled, interact with inmates and learn about the consequences of poor decisions.
Helped me realize that the situation that was going on in our society, in our country, I was part of that, and I was a big part of this, messed up generation that was causing trouble. So I wanted to, help kids, because I didn't want to see any kids in prison doing what I was doing.
You were how old when you went to prison?
I just turned 20. As I looked around prison, I saw a lot of young folks coming into prison that were as young as myself. And I remembered basically the feeling I had when I first went to prison. And I felt lost and confused. So, it affects you after a while. You're like, wow, young kids are coming to prison and they're giving them these big time. They're doing a lot of time. And no one's really telling these kids what's going on. Society is like basically fast-paced and is moving on. And if a kid commits a crime, it's like, okay, let's just, throw them away. We're not going to try to rehabilitate. We're just going to put them in this punitive system and let them do time. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy when I seen so many young folks as I was getting older. So I got involved in the SCORE program and started talking to youth.
How serious is the problem of street violence here in Providence, Rhode Island?
It's serious.
Teny Gross, a former Israeli army sergeant now living in Providence, is executive director of the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence.
Providence is the third poorest city in the country for children. We were tied with New Orleans until Katrina. Second biggest Dominican population in the country, third biggest Cambodian population. People who left war zones like Liberia, very diverse, very poor parts of the city. That poverty and dropout rates are very high. And just the general culture of gangs and information we have now in our society and the availability of weapons on the 95 corridor and drugs create a really deadly cocktail.
And what is your understanding of the dynamics of violence, how it snowballs?
It goes very quickly. Going back to Israel, one incident of kidnapping 3 soldiers a few years ago created a Lebanon war again, the second one we had a few years ago, right? So a little skirmishing. So here could be a text or could be a Facebook that humiliates another side of town and it forces the other side of town now to react. It could be drinking and running into each other in a party and someone brings a weapon and we're off to the races. Could be a fist fight, which you had in the past. We grew up with fist fights that someone lost and didn't like it and they're coming back with a weapon. There's so many opportunities when you're angry, upset, maybe you didn't eat, maybe your parents are in jail. I think we have like close to 1,000 kids in our school system whose parents are in jail. That's plenty of anger and loneliness and depression.
So you're saying in these conditions it simply doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much
to trigger a violent reaction.
In fact, because so many of the kids are kind by nature, a lot more could happen, and really they stop most of the fights. And community members stop a lot. There's a small percentage of people who really drive a lot of the violence.
Before taking up his duties in Rhode Island, Teny Gross had worked for the 10-Point Coalition, an ecumenical program in Boston formed by local clergy to address an eruption of youth violence. There he gained an appreciation of the role that street workers can play in quelling gang activity. At his institute in Providence, the street workers attend seminars in nonviolence and are trained in building alliances with school personnel, social service agencies, local residents, and the police. Alfred Amuri.
Basically, it's like when you enter a gang's territory, when you enter a gang's territory, this is the first thing they teach you. You're a guest. And you have to realize you're a guest. You can't say, okay, no, these streets don't belong to them. You have to kind of, accept that, okay, this is a public street, but they're trying to run this street. I'm not going to tell them not to run the street. Eventually, I'm going to tell them, you're bigger than this street. You don't need this street. You can do so much more. But in the beginning is the approach that really, validates who you are in the community.
And does that mean that you have to approach them with some humility?
Yeah. Often you have to,
Now, if you're entering a community of people who like to show how tough they are, is coming with humility a potential disadvantage?
I would say for the everyday person, yes, it is. But when when you know how to communicate the language of the streets, there's a difference there. How you approach an individual. You cannot show an individual that you're too soft, for example, too scared of them or whatever. You show enough respect to the point where they will give you respect back.
The landscape of urban violence is a battlefield where nearly everyone is carrying deep emotional wounds, whether from poverty, neglect, addiction, prejudice, self-hatred. The victims and perpetrators have a profound need to heal.
When I got out of prison, I made parole. I had a job as an interpreter. I speak 5 languages, so...
Which?
I speak... I don't even want to get into the languages I speak, but I speak Italian, Spanish, French, English, and an African dialect. So when I got out of prison, I worked as a translator. But I kind of... Just getting out and being around so many people, I wasn't comfortable, so I didn't really like the job right away. Prior to that, I knew about the Institute, and I told a friend of mine who worked here at the Institute that, yeah, I would like to get a job over there, man, and working with kids. I know that pretty well. I've been working with them for a while. I can do that, you know.
And what was your motivation for wanting to get a job working with kids?
Well, I thought it would be something that I'm pretty good at because I've been doing it for so long, you know. And I felt, you know, comfortable around the kids because the kids will accept you no matter what, as opposed to other people.
Why would they accept you?
Well, you know, you can tell a kid, listen, I made a mistake, I did this. And a kid would probably look at it and say, well, you know what? He's not a bad person. As opposed to telling an adult would probably be like more skeptical, would look at you different, would probably try to get you fired, you know. I don't want to be around this guy. He's a murderer, you know. So things like that came up in my mind.
We're talking with staff at the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence in Providence, Rhode Island. You're listening to Humankind. I'm David Freudberg. For more information on this segment, Streetworkers, please visit our website, humanmedia.org.
My goal and mission in life is from what I wanted as a child, you know, the peaceful life, the nonviolence. I grew up surrounding violence all my life.
Tony Kim, 34 years old, has worked at the Institute for about 5 years.
My parents ran from the war, the Khmer Rouge War,
in Cambodia.
Civil War in Cambodia. I was born in the refugee camp in Thailand. Barely survived. I came out premature and everything else, and came to the United States. When my family bought the house in the West End, I witnessed a murder. Like the first month we was there,
you witnessed a murder.
Witnessed it. I witnessed a guy getting shot in front of me, but I didn't witness him dying. But I heard that he died down the street, and not long after that there was a gang shootout, where a few people got hit actually. And
you were what age?
7, 8, no more than that.
So this is just a part of your life? This
is just a part of my life. I'm used to it. I think that's how it's supposed to be. But somewhere inside, deep down inside, I knew I had to get out of there. Like, there's a different way. There's something else out there. And what I wanted as a child is what I want to give back, basically.
Kids Shooting Hoops at Rec Night, a weekly evening of basketball, breakdancing, and food organized by the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence and several partner organizations. Typically about 65 youths from South Providence, some gang-affiliated, attend and can have fun in safety. Institute Director Teny Gross.
Our tool is love and kindness, right? It is incredible, as someone who felt very comfortable carrying an M16, how many difficult situations I stepped into. I had guns pulled on me, on guys behind me in Mattapan. I was in situation with Asian gangs here in Providence. How kindness and words make a difference, right? We work with tough shooters and gang members, and kindness, it takes a while. I believe in the theory of the walls of Jericho. You surround Jericho walls 9 times. Joshua did, and eventually the walls fell. So this is a long-haul kind of a struggle.
So are you saying that in your direct experience, walking into a highly tense situation where violence is in the air, that the use of loving and kind language can diffuse the violence?
Well, you got to be careful. I don't want to. It's almost like one of those disclaimers. Don't try this at home, right? I don't suggest someone who has just left Walmart in Barrington in the suburbs, right, walk into a gang conflict in Dorchester and tell everyone, "Look, I love you. Stop," right? We have been able to interrupt those situations twice when I mentioned with the guns pulled on us because I knew the people, because I worked with them. You put effort. You are non-quantity. That's why we believe. The tool we use, and Ceasefire in Chicago uses, and other people in Cincinnati and other cities use, the street worker, is you got to hire people from the community to save their own community. We are not going to solve the problem of violence in the United States unless we're going to really substantially recycle human capital that the moment we incarcerate. We have a quarter of the world jail population. So we hire ex-offenders. We have 4 people on our staff who were involved in homicide. But, people change. They were part of a monopoly game. They don't longer belong. And they have a desire, something stronger than mine, to give back to the world, to repair what they cannot repair. It's incredible. They'll work themselves to death to give back for a misjudgment they did in a different battle zone.
How do you define what it is that you want to give back?
A role model, a good role model, someone to look up to.
Street worker Tony Kim.
Someone to tell me that, or tell them, don't do it. There's better things out there. It's there's a light, on the other side of the tunnel.
Why would they believe you?
The experience that I had. Maybe it's the reputation that I had. I always put my face out there. I'm the bully's bully, you can say. I don't like bullies, because I've been bullied all my life. And I grew up to be the bully's bully. So everybody sort of count on me, where's Tony? Let's get Tony, and I'll go, and no matter how big the guy is, I'll probably drop kick him in the face or something like that real quick. And so I built that rep, and giving them a little bit of my past.
So that gives you some credibility.
That does, yeah. Correct.
And what is it that you advise the kids?
Depending on the situation. A kid who was almost killed in front of me. I walked in right on it. Actually, I heard a gunshot.
Where was this?
Right down the street from my house. And I looked out. All my family was there. It was a warm summer night. And I went to check it out, who shot who. Maybe I should call the cops. I don't know. But when I went there, they were still chasing each other. It was kind of a strange story, but this kid went over there went over to the house to call this kid out. And he wanted to fight him, but he brought a gun with him. And he displayed the gun, come out, a fight, because the kid was talking trash about him. And he was tired of it. He said, you know what, I'm done with this kid. He's out there talking a lot of smacks, acting like he's a tough guy. I know he's a nobody, saying all this stuff. And but while doing that, he was messing up a drug deal. There was a drug deal that was going on at the time. So the drug dealer said, get out of here, kid, I'll shoot you in the head, And the kid was like, what? Try it. The drug dealer, he shot, on the ground to scare the kid away. And the kid pulled out the gun and ran behind the car and looked like he was about to shoot back. And that's when I walked in. And I didn't know any of them. I was like, wait, but inside I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get killed. But I talked to the kid. I said, chill, relax, what's going on? And the other guy was like, yo, get this kid out of here, act like he know me. So he gave me his friend's number, and I dialed it. And, and I told him the address. I said, come pick him up right now. He need you right now, He's, he's in danger. And he's like, what? So the friend came, it felt like 2 seconds, And he came, and I opened up the door, and I pushed him in, and he took off. And after that, a couple of weeks later, I found the kid. I found out who he was. I talked to the guy who he was there for, to fight. And found the other kid, tried to do a mediation, he said, I'll leave it alone as long as he don't say anything about me no more, And
now, did you bring anybody else in, or did you handle this mediation on your own?
Sort of on my own. That time we was very short-handed, you can say. But, I helped the kid out, and I offered them to go and find jobs. But what I heard is that he went to school. He's good, and he's out of it completely. And he built a whole lot of love and respect for me. So I take that as a success story. He could have been killed. He could have went back for revenge.
Youth violence and gang activity don't occur in a vacuum. They are the consequence of societal failures and individual families with problems. street worker Alfred Amuri at the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence.
It's more than just the youth. For example, we might go there and we earn these kids' trust. We'll go to their homes, and their mothers might need assistance. So we would bring them to the Institute and try to find the proper assistance, be it welfare. Like, for example, the Providence Housing Authority, because they need something fixed in their house that they haven't had fixed because they can't have hot water. So we do a lot of things. We're not only just for the gangs itself, but that's our main target, to try to, stop the gang violence within the city. But at the same time, we help their families. We help their little brothers. We enroll some of them back in school.
At the heart of the Institute's work is a belief in the possibility of transformation, that bad situations, even ugly ones on urban streets, can be made better, that people who find themselves in a difficult position, including former criminals, can move into a life that is more constructive and satisfying. Israeli-born Teny Gross, the Institute's executive director, has done much soul-searching.
When I was young, I knew I'm going to go to the army. I thought peace maybe is possible, maybe not. I really believed that Palestinians don't want peace and the Arabs don't want peace. And then you get educated and you change your perception. You meet people. There's a reason why we mature in life and why we use young people to kill.
And why we use young people to kill. How do you find ex-offenders who have undergone those kinds of changes and have matured in those ways? And what traits do you look for to make sure a former criminal will be doing the right thing?
Some of the most moving people that I know, and they're in Chicago, they're in Cincinnati, they're in LA, they're in New Bedford, and of course here in Providence and Boston, are ex-offenders. I don't want to cheapen the experience of soldiers, and I don't want to portray any disrespect to our military. As a former sergeant in the Israeli army, I'll always have respect for the sacrifice people do. So I don't want to compare it, but I need to make some comparison that people have gone through the worst experience, and gang violence to some extent is. When you're shot at, when your three friends die in front of you, when you have experienced that rage and grief. And at some point, and it's a process, you get enlightened, and you see what happens to your community, and you feel that you contributed to that mayhem, and you become a peacemaker, someone who uses love and words. That gives you such a rich motivation and experience, such credibility, such life motivation, such understanding and intensity, that those are some of the most remarkable people that I have around me.
A lot of people, though, would react that because of the notoriously high rate of recidivism among people who have been incarcerated, that you're taking a gamble when you hire people with that background to go onto the street and interact again with gangs. Is that a concern?
It is a concern. We had street workers rearrested. Every city had. But in Rhode Island, actually, you could say there's more officers and more state legislators who are rearrested. I mean, you got risk in every field. I mean, people commit crime in Wall Street, I mean, I would ask a society, I know the answer to myself, it's a rhetorical question. Can we afford not to recycle this human capital? We have increased our jail rates by 600%. We're producing more professors of violence. People who understand how to deal with society and community through violence.
Teny Gross's faith that people can change for the better is inspiring to his staff of about a dozen street workers and administrators. He has the reputation of something of a human dynamo, a slightly driven man on a mission to take care of his community and to show up even when the chips are down. Alfred Amuri.
He really does care. This is a man who does not sleep, who will be at every shooting. He will be talking to every parent. He will be, one minute he'll be on the West Coast, and there'll be a shooting, and he'll be on that plane coming back. He won't even sleep. He'll be at the hospital. And put it this way, Teny is a man who has his children, and he's the same person who's taking care of other people's children, So you find people in life that are special. From the short time I've been with him here, I've seen his passion and how he cares and how he works us to death. Believe me, it could be 4 a.m. Teny's calling me himself. Wake up, there's a shooting. Let's go there.
I've been so long now with gangs. There's always a Shakespearean debate there, to do or not to do.
Inside the gangs themselves.
And within their heads. And the question is, do you have a positive adult who can tilt this, right? Or do you have the most negative leader of a gang in front? The streetworkers sometimes give them a way out. Often young people get into a conflict and climb a tree they don't know how to get down from. They're stuck. They got to save face. And to have a positive mediator, just the fact that streetworkers are there, or the streetworkers know, in the perception of a gang, like, all right, now the adults know. It's no longer between us two gangs. So we have a way out. Okay, we're going to have to stop it. The streetworkers know about it. Sometimes it's mediating, reasoning, calming someone down, buying time. A young person said in the rain was a leader of a gang, to some of the young ladies. There were maybe 40 of us completely soaking in rain. It was in rain in the middle of a conflict. It was a Friday afternoon a few years ago in Kennedy Plaza. Pouring rain, dark. He said to the girls, stop it. You're pushing us. You're pushing us where we have no choice but to fight. We don't want to die. We don't want to kill.
Not so long ago, a kid we worked with all summer long and ended up in a hospital stabbed,
And what's that like for you?
It's hard. And I think another difficult thing is that when I go home, I still think about it. I take this job home with me because I can't stop thinking about it. Maybe I spoke with a couple of kids earlier on the day, and I'm laying there thinking, knowing that he's going to end up dead one day, very soon. Or
because he's going down the wrong road?
He's going down the wrong road, and he's determined, So, I mean, it's difficult going home, laying there, and thinking about those things, and a lot of times our fear comes true, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're out there, is to do proactive work, to get involved in these kids' lives and try to be that block, that roadblock.
Street worker Tony Kim of the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence in Providence, Rhode Island. You're listening to Humankind. I'm David Freudberg. Studio recording by Antonio Oliart. Editorial assistance from Thomas Royal and Kathy Graham. Webmaster Brian K. Johnson. Special thanks to Tony Buck and to Megan Hall of public radio station WRNI in Providence. Our program is produced by Human Media in association with WGBH Boston and the Network Incorporated. Program development provided by Shart Media.
To purchase a CD copy of this program, please call 1-800-5LISTEN. That's 1-800-5LISTEN. Or visit our website, where you can also obtain an audio download of this and our other programs and can hear selected episodes free. You can access free written materials related to this program as well. Our web address is humanmedia.org. Again, if you'd like to purchase a CD copy of Humankind by phone, please call 1-800-5LISTEN, and our web address is humanmedia.org.
This segment, Streetworkers, is Humankind program number 149.
The executive producer is David Freudberg. This is Humankind.